Dave is my friend who was a pastor for a long time in this area, a successful pastor in this area, Pentecostal Charismatic Church. And Dave lost faith in the Jesus that he had known. Wife, kids, grandkids, he did this in his 50s. And he deconstructed so far that I didn't know him at that time, but in that place of agnosticism, atheism, Dave introduced me to a side of my own heart that I didn't admit was there. He found me because he knew some of the things we were doing at GracePointe, and he said, I don't believe all of that, but I'm interested in that. And a few years ago, he and I became fast friends. And I found out that agnostics and atheists, even former Christian pastor agnostics and atheists, aren't bad people. They're actually really, many of them, good people. And he and I began having some of the most invigorating, honest conversations I've ever had in my life. And for whatever reason, he can tell his story more. This guy did not flip the whole thing off. He has hung around the tomb. And he has dealt gently with his own soul and the Jesus that he lost. A few weeks ago, I walked in here. He still comes to church because this is all a part of his culture and sociology, and he was standing over there. I said, hey, I hadn't seen you in a while. And he said something to the tune of, something has happened to me and I got it back. And before everybody applauds, it's maybe not what you think, but it's amazing what happens to people when they hang around the tomb and they deal honorably. And I have so appreciated that, and it's made me even be more honest. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I just wanted to introduce him as best I can. So, does this stuff make sense to you?
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. I hung around, and we have had some invigorating conversations. I don't know what to label myself. You know, I don't like labels. I don't like the word atheist because that's got a lot of baggage with it, as does the label Christian. So I'm just a guy trying to figure it out, and trying to be honest with myself and with other people. But Stan's right. You know, I did completely lose faith in Jesus, the God that I knew, after 35 years of wholeheartedly, devotedly pursuing that. And when you do that, when you come to the end of that and you realize I got nothing here, then it can make you angry. I was angry. I felt like I'd been cheated and fooled and given the best years of my life to something that wasn't true. But I know now that I was just doing the best I could, just like we all are, trying to figure it out. So when Stan and I began to talk, and we've had some good conversations about all the above, I had truly, and this was just to give you some context, you know, about 7 years ago when this began to deconstruct for me. And it was a process of 2 to 3 years. It wasn't one morning I woke up and said, okay, I'm done. You know, it's a process. It's a long, arduous, difficult process to re-examine that which you've believed for your whole life. And it's difficult. It's like a combination of a death and a divorce all at once. So it's earth-shattering to me to come to the end of that. It's not a light thing at all. And so in the midst of that, though, I had to kind of figure out, what do I do now? And as Stan was saying, I could either get angry and rail against everything and become an angry atheist or an angry agnostic or an angry something. But I didn't find much redemptive value in that anger. So I quickly ran through that phase and thought, you know what, I better find something better than this. And so I just began to re-examine myself and what I wanted my life to look like. And I happened upon some people who were doing some mission work in Nicaragua, and Nicaragua is not significant in other than the fact that it's the second poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere, and 60% of the people live on $2 a day. That means something to you, then take that to the bank. But I just found a place to go to that I could get out of myself. And you've all, I'm sure, no, I shouldn't say that. Many of you probably have done mission work and gone to foreign countries and third world countries, developing nations where people don't have anything. But what I found was an ability to sink my teeth into something that was going to give me some value and some meaning. And when I saw Stan over here that morning after I had, and I used to, I would just kind of come and hang around the back like a coyote outside the yard, just kind of, if somebody looked at me too quick, I would dash out the door. But I didn't know what I was here for. I like Stan. He's a good guy. And let me say this about this guy. I never couldn't get through this without crying. I have a great deal of respect for him, as much as any man I know. Because it's easy to follow your convictions when it doesn't cost anything. But when it costs you a lot, when it costs you everything, and you are only doing it because something here says you have to, I respect that. So I don't know if I've told you that, but thank you. I respect it. And I've kind of suffered that same thing. It's me following the convictions of my heart, being honest with myself about my faith, has cost me a lot. Relationship with family members, a lot. Friends who won't associate with me anymore because I don't believe the right things. Because I don't believe the right things. I don't understand that. But that's what many people's faith hinges upon, what you believe. So what my new spirituality, my new religion, my new faith, I don't care what you call it, my new God, I don't care, you can call it that, is that I've found a way to embrace something that matters right now, in the here and now. When I can go to Nicaragua and I can spend $20 at a market and take food to a widow and 3 women, 3 kids who don't have food to eat. They've got enough food for 2 days. If someone doesn't give them something, they will be out of food in 2 days. And I can spend $20 at a market and buy them enough rice and beans and eggs and oil to last 3 weeks. I can get behind that kind of spirituality, if you want to call it that. Religion, if you want to call it that. When we can build a house for $15,000 for this widow who is living on a dirt floor with a roof that leaks when it rains, with 3 kids, 2 of them by a man who's in prison, the 3rd one by a man who's dead. And we can do something meaningful to her so that her kids will have somewhat of an option in this life. Because they were just simply unlucky enough to be born in the wrong country. That's what it boils down to. They just weren't lucky enough to be born in America with all the options we have. So that's what I meant when I saw Stan that morning. I said, man, I've turned a corner. Because up until then,
I was hoping for a little more than that, but it's a good place to start. I'm just kidding.
that's all I got.
I'm sorry. That's the old answer.
Yeah, I know, right? You want me to pray a prayer?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me lay hands on me. You know, if the Spirit comes over me, I'll say anything, and I'm not responsible for what I say, so no, I don't, that's not right. Not right at all.
And yet
but
we were standing back there last week at the music service, and we're standing back there listening to a song, and you look over at me standing back there, because you're still not a big sitter in church.
I know.
You look at me, big tears in his eyes. He's
Shut
like,
up now,
"Man,
don't
that
tell me.
song." I know, but it's
come
the
on.
truth. What I'm saying, this is what...
It
Hey,
was Rise Up, and that song rocked, right?
Yeah, it rocked enough to rock tears out of your eyes.
It did.
Because all I'm saying is, we've been inclusive, and we have Jewish people speak, and Muslim people speak, and we're known for inclusion. I think if we really mean inclusion, I can do a spiritual journey with people like this.
And I can do a spiritual journey with people like this.
And I don't...
With all my heart. Because it's stuff that matters. And when I told Stan last week, I said, you're doing something really important here. Because he's including people. And so much of Christianity is exclusive. It divides, it separates. It says, I'm in and you're out. I'm right and you're wrong. I hate that.
Do y'all mind if we let people... Do you mind if we let people who don't believe and aren't looking for a risen Christ, but they want and they find meaning around the tomb of Jesus and the presence of Jesus? Do you mind? We include people like this. This is a spiritual journey, and I'm telling you, a lot of you clean up good. There's 30% of you that are sitting here thinking, I'm about that far from what he's describing. So let us all be honest. This is a community. These are the people who surrounded Jesus. We are these people. So I think I have a few more metaphysical beliefs than Dave does, but Dave is near the tomb of Jesus feeding hungry children in Nicaragua, and the last time I checked, the people who met the risen Christ were simply there doing decent things for other human beings. So to that end, this is an interesting question. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you take communion anymore?
No.
All right.
I eat crackers when I
All
have
right.
soup. Does that count?
Here's the deal.
And I drink wine.
I mean this with all my heart, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. If we don't treat this like some kind of paranormal, theological, creedal thing, but we treat it the way it is, communion is supposed to be the Lord's table. Would you be willing to sit at the Lord's table with me? I'd love to take communion with you.
Sure, I'd love to.